Okay, we are starting a new project today, and it's going to be a very popular entertainment center for a niche in the wall. So this isn't going to be on top of the wall, it's going to go in the wall. So I do all my rips first, and then I take it all to the crosscut sled to cut them all, and it's just easy. I do not cross-cut these guys first. If I had a big panel saw, I might do that, square them up, and then do it that way. But I don't have a panel saw, so this way works for me. It's the way I've done it for 20 years, and it's great. Okay, so you just saw me rip those. So what I do is I overcut it. I cut it at 17.5, and now I'm going to come back. So I'm going to flip the board over. The ripped side is going to go against the fence, and I'm going to cut off the factory side. Got all these done. Now what we have to do is do all the grooving and the dadoing and the rabbiting. So all the joinery has to be done. Okay, so I'm going to change out this blade, and I'm going to put in my dado blade. The board that has the writing on it, that writing, that represents the good side, meaning that was the side up when I cut it, so the top doesn't have any tear out. That's a good side. If this was going to be an exposed cabinet where you're going to see those cuts, where I have a face frame that's going to be visible from the side, like kitchen cabinets or, exposed bookcases, that sort of thing, we want to make sure that that would be on the outside. In this particular case, everything's concealed, so we don't really care. So at this point, we're going to make the good side the inside for no other reason than just to keep it simple. So what I do is I actually flip this over. So now I have inside facing inside. Okay, so that's how that's going to lay out. So that's the left side, this is the right side. Now, with that in mind, the first thing I do is I put down the back. So I'm going to go ahead and put a line. I'm going to put a line, and that's going to represent the back. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it here, there. Those are going to represent the tops, okay? And then we have one at the bottom. It's going to be a dado, dado. Okay. We don't care about the measurement. That's not what we're doing this for. This is just the layout. So here I'm going to write down 1/2 inch. So that's going to be the back. And that's different from all the rest. The rest of them are 3/4 inch. Okay, so the layout's done on that. That's it. That's it. Nothing else needed. Pretty cool. The upper one is exactly the same. The upper side, exactly the same. Those are the sides. So there's the left and the right side. So it's exactly the same as this. These are the bottoms that we just laid out. The bottom sides. The only difference is the dimension, right? It's a little bit bigger. And that guy there where we're going to put the dado for the back TV panel. Note of that. 19 inches from the top to the start of that dado. and that's going to give us that same. It's just a safer cut to do it that distance from the saw blade versus 38. Shelf, that fixed shelf right there, that above the TV area, that's going to have that groove as well. So, from the front right there. So it's going to go up the side and stop where that dado is, and then it's going to go on this underside of that piece, and then again that one. So 3 dados, and it's a stopped dado. I don't want it to continue, and I'll see it in the cabinet. Put a mark at the trailing and leading edge of the saw blade. I'll put that on the fence so that I know where to stop the workpiece as I'm pushing it through. The saw blade, and just when it starts to touch it, that's where you want to put a mark. And this is going to transfer it to the rip fence. So that's just touching it, so I go up here and I put a mark on the fence, and that tells me where that's going to stop. And I'll do the same thing on the trailing edge. Right there. So now the next thing to do, if I didn't already show you, is I put a mark on the actual workpiece on the top side so I can see where that stop is going to have to occur. And I'm going to line that up with the line on the rip fence, and I'll know I'm at my spot. So for some of these, for one of these pieces, I'm going to have to plunge into the saw blade and go forward. For the other one, I go forward and then I lift up. Okay, so we are at the tricky point here where we need to figure out how to center these guys in this cabinet. In other words, to make these all the same net distance when the face frames are on it. From this edge to the inside of the face frame is 2 inches total. That's this mark. So that's just over 1.5 inches. Now if we take that on both sides, that is 3 inches and 1/16. So 3 inches and 1/16. Now, if we take this overall length, which is 68 inches, right? So 68 inches minus 3" and 1/16. Okay, so that's the dimension between the outside face frame. Now, if we go and we subtract these two face frames, which 2 inches each, so we're going to subtract a total of 4 inches. So we get -4 inches. That gives us 60 and 15/16. Now, how many sections do we have? 1, 2, 3. So we want to divide that number by 3. Divided by 3. Boom. That's our number. That is where we can say, all right, 20 and 5/16. So we go from here over 20 and 5/16, and that puts us right here. Now, 2 inches for the face frame, okay? And now we go over 20 and 5/16. That takes us to another face frame. Then we go another 2 inches. 20 and 5/16. That takes us to our final face frame. So that means all these pieces are going to be exactly the same inside the face frame when it's all done. And that's what we want. So we're good to go. The only thing now we have to figure out is between these face frames, where do we want that dado to be? Generally, we want it to be in the middle so that they're equidistant on both sides. So pencil, and I'm going to make a mark. All right, so that's our mark. We know it's going to be the same from both sides. That's our mark right there. So we're going to go 22 and 7/16 strong. So that would also be 15 30-seconds. Here, there, 22, 15, 30 seconds. Okay, so we got that done, and now we have to do this one. This one is absolutely the simplest one. We're just going to center this. That's going to be my reference off the table saw fence. So to that point right there, the dimension is 33 and just over 5/8, so 21 30-seconds. It's probably a good idea to get in the habit of putting a reference arrow so that when you're running the dado, you know which side goes up against the fence. A full width rabbet, so we're actually going to be touching the fence. Just goes on the saw like that, just clips on, and then I tighten these up. Now when you're setting it up for this type of a cut, and you want to make sure that it's flush, the best thing to do is just make test cuts. Good job. So once I get that set, the height stays the same, everything stays the same, and we lock in the fence, make a test cut. Okay, so all these back rabbets are done. So now you can see the depth, how it's so much deeper. You can see here the difference. That's for the middle divider. So what this does is it just gives me a bigger surface right here for glue and for my nailing. two spacers on these just to make it a little simpler. So I just cut two pieces of wood. Bring you in. So you can see joints look really good. And once they get sanded, obviously, the joints look excellent. Once they get sanded, it'll be all nice and smooth and flush. But the most important part is that the joints are great. There's no openings. Inside corners are really clean. There's no tear out. All right, we've got the sizes all laid out here. So we're going to do 3 doors of these, so we need 6 of each rail and style. And 4 doors for the lower, that means 8 rails and stiles. 2 for each door. And of course the panels on those ones, 4 of those. Okay, so we've got everything here. So as far as setup, I just use my setup block that I have. It's basic, you don't need this, but this is, since I have it, I might as well use it. And I just put it face down, and I just make it so that it fits underneath there, just like that. So that would be like how if it was cutting it, that's what it would be doing. So that's all I do. As far as the fence goes, that's a little bit different. So in between the 2 cutters is a bearing. We want to take that piece and put it right up against the fence more. So do that until you're about flush, a little bit to where the bearing is a little bit recessed into the fence. Check it again. Okay, so we're a hair away from that bearing. And as I hold this down to the push stick, I'm just pushing it just like that. And you see how everything just stays square? And I just hold it and it cuts it easily, no problem. There's a little bit of a lip. So what that means, this profile has to go lower. So I have to raise up the bit just a little bit. That's the way it should look right there. That's the way it should feel. You might wonder why I didn't run all these, and that's because these are glass. I have a different set of router bits for these. Same exact profile, but it's actually set up to make glass. See how it's stacked up double on the rabbiting bits? There's 2 of them versus 1 of them on that. So I did that a long time ago in order to make this glass cutting set as well as this. So I took one of the cutters from this set and I flipped it over and put it on this guy, and therefore I get a glass door set. So I will show you that when I do it. Okay, now when you use this bit, what's going to happen is it's going to actually take off all the material, and you're going to be left with essentially a void on the outfeed side. So what I do is I put a piece of tape . So again, this piece of tape just makes it so running this profile, see, it completely takes away the material. So there's nothing left from the piece of wood as it goes through. And then when it's done, you're going to get snipe. So you'll get snipe on the front and the lead or the trailing edge. Generally, it's the trailing edge that's got the worst. So you'll get snipe as soon as it passes the bit. And to avoid that, you put this piece here. The other option would be to actually take this whole thing and then shim it out. But putting the tape is much easier and simpler to do. So now, if you didn't know what this custom set does, you can see it here. There's a rabbet for the glass to sit in. Got everything sanded, and they fit in the slot nicely, the groove. My goal is to get to the point where they slide easily, but not too sloppy, right? So when you look at the joint, you want them to be tight, but still be able to move. All right. Well, I jumped ahead. Got the face frame on this guy. Clamped it up, so I just did that. So it's just drying as of right now. And the next one is we just got to do the other cabinet. Face frame, glue up. And that I'm actually going to do vertical. And it's a little tricky because obviously the glue wants to run down. So we'll do the verticals first. Horizontals will be last. And we'll get the clamps on them right away. So what's helpful is that there's no back on it yet because I don't have the material. It's actually a benefit because we can use the clamps back here. So sometimes it's nice to do it this way. just going to go ahead and wipe that. This is the clip that sometimes won't fit if you use too small of a divider. So look here, see how we have just enough space. That's it. But in some cases, nailing is totally acceptable, and this time nailing would be acceptable as well. But since it's just two cabinets and this is really not that big of a deal, I prefer to clamp. You know, when we're doing huge like kitchens that require a lot of cabinets, those things can take quite a while. I still try to clamp them, but every now and again I gotta speed things up by throwing some nails in there to speed it up and then remove the clamps. But most of the time we clamp the stuff. So for the doors, I'm going to sand them with my 5-inch. Sander's got a little bit lighter cut on it because it doesn't rotate as much. So it's a little easier on the doors, which you could easily take down too much. So sometimes I do use the 6-inch, but in this particular case, I'm going to use the 5-inch. All right, I'm at the stage where I'm starting to fit some doors. This particular door, you can see the space down here is greater than it is up here. That's where it touches, so it bottoms out right there. So I need to trim a little off, and the space there is going to tell me how much to take off at the top. So if I look at the space and I just put a line, I know that's how much I need to take off, that little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. So the bottom touches and it's open at the top. So I need to take off basically the exact amount. This is just one of these operations that no matter what you do, you just have to fit in set doors. No matter what. It's definitely something that I've done for a long time, as it's really the only style of cabinet that I ever do. So doing it with the joiner is great. There are other ways of doing it as well. You could put a straight edge and a router, which is the way I've done it for years on site. But since I made my jig, generally I don't need that. However, with these taller doors, I can't use my jig. The spacing on these guys is definitely, always a challenge, because when you have double doors that have stereo components behind them, having the spacing just a hair bit bigger is always nice, because you get a little airflow when you have fans in the cabinets. The fans will pull the air through the cracks and give the equipment fresh air, and then blow it out the back of the cabinet. So if you have these spaces just be a little bit bigger, it allows for a little bit more airflow. And especially when you go at the top and sometimes at the bottom, there are stops, and those stops will prevent airflow as well. So you're only going to get airflow from the sides, right, and then the center. So I need to take that into consideration. This particular cabinet, I know is going to be getting audio equipment. They generally are. So that's something that I need to think about. Always careful, but I will put the hinges on here and I will mount everything and I will get it perfect. So if I get to the job and everything remains the same and it's perfect, then that's great. Sometimes I'll put the doors on the job site, actually at the job. I'll put them on the cabinet, so when I install the cabinet I can see whether or not it's racked or not. And it's all by eye. There's no I don't take tape measures and whatnot. It's just all by eye. If your eye catches it, then it's wrong. Your eye will be very, very easy to see any discrepancies in the sizes or the angles in which the doors are in the cabinet. Maybe it's slightly tighter at top than it is at the bottom. Your eyes catch all that stuff. And then when they're painted, they even catch them even more. So I start off with, I think I mentioned when I sized these doors, I started out with a little bit of a tighter doors in the opening, because I know that I need to adjust the sizes and adjust the fit. And so I always start off with a slightly tighter door. That way I end up with a good size, the right fit door, and not have a door that's too small. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of this countertop. So if I go and I measure the whole length of this counter, the center, I'm going to put a mark at 38. Okay, so we're good. That's the center. Now I need to go, since the cabinet that we're putting it on is 68 and 7/8, that is going to be half of that to each side. 34 and 7/16. Now if I do that same number on this other side, 34 and 7/16, sure it adds up to 68 and 7/8, and it does. Okay, so now we know we're centered. Now what I do is I take my combination square here and I put a line on the edge. It's parallel with the edge that's going to represent that overhang. Okay, this is actually what we're going to cut out, but we want to leave a portion at the front, and that portion at the front is going to be the overhang. It's going to actually go in front of the wall, the cabinet, which is 18 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and put a mark at 18 inches to that line. And just to be on the safe side, I always go a little heavy on that line, because this piece can be a little smaller. It doesn't matter. All right, now I'm just going to take my square and I'm going to go from this end, come all the way down, and I'm going to stop at that line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line and I'm going to square it right off of that 18-inch mark, and I'm actually going to put a little dot down here, right there, that little line right there. That little line is going to represent 18 inches. I'm actually going to cut it a little bit short of the line, so it's actually going to be I'm going to take an 1/8 inch and I'm going to bring it back. So that 18 inches now becomes 17 7/8 on this end. And the only way to describe the reason I do that is to show you actually at the job site. You can see how crooked that line is. That's an 1/8 inch out. Okay, I'm getting my jigsaw out, but I wanted to make a note about something. One thing that drives me nuts about these Festool sanders is that every time I take off the vacuum hose, there's sawdust that stays on the outlet of the sander or whatever tool I'm using. So I'm going to show you that right now. This drives me crazy. Do you see that? It's because there's all those grooves there, and look at that, it gets caught. So what I do is I put the saw on and actually wait until it spins. And now I take it off. See that? The only issue is that this Carvex, for some reason, is not working properly. So sometimes it comes on, but sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it does not come on. So if I push the trigger, it may or may not come on. And in order to get it on, I actually have to like push this. Isn't that weird? To get it to go on. So right now, I'm going to put it on and see if it goes on, but I doubt it will. See that? The light comes on, but no dice. It's the strangest thing. It used to be if I tapped it, it went on, but this is my only Festool tool that's ever failed in any kind of capacity. So this guy is so annoying. And like, look at this. Just no dice. If anybody knows the deal with that, please let me know, because it's otherwise pretty decent. It's not as good as the Bosch. The Bosch is definitely a better cut, but the Bosch doesn't have vacuum. So sometimes I have to sacrifice the cut in order to get good suction. The jigsaw will not turn on, so I'm going to go with the Bosch and just use the manual hose right next to the blade. There is no doubt in my mind that this saw, this jigsaw, is a better saw for cutting straight up and down and having no wobble in the blade. The blade is just so rock solid. This is an amazing tool, especially with these particular Bosch blades. Okay, so this is the front edge. I'm going to go ahead and sand it, and I need to sand the ends. All my bevels are nice and straight and flat and even. This is the countertop. We want to make sure that this edge here is softened as well, that front corner. Okay, so I need to do the clips for the hinges, and for that I use my jig. You've seen me use this a million times. Go ahead and put the jig in place and set the hinge on it and secure it with a 3/4 inch screw. These are the big washer head screws. They're for metal lath, but they work great for this application. Washer head holds it real nicely. So I recommend using these only. And you do not need to pre-drill or anything. They go in really easily. So I use this guy. And again, it's made to go right over 3/4 material, as you can see. And then as long as you push down so you know that you're flat on the face frame. Okay. This has a little lip, so you take the clip and you touch the face frame with the lip and then drop it down onto the jig, and that's your height. So you know you're good. You can hold that, take the jig out. And I like to do the top hole first if I can. Okay, gluing on some plinth blocks. Got them all sanded. And I'm putting them on the pilasters, the lower pilasters. So all I need to do is put some glue on the end of the pilaster, and I've got some pockets already drilled for screws. So after the glue sets, I will hit it with some 1.25" Kreg screws. Go to the next one. I'll be able to flip that guy over real quickly. And screws. All right. You have to go there very tight. Just keep it from. See how nice that is? That's a very clean joint. Flush on the back. If you don't put those pockets in, you will, when you install this job, these pilasters will snap. I've got a glue on. This is going to be the parting bead for the crown molding. There's going to be a crown up here, and the flutes are going to die into here. So I just need to glue this guy onto this one here. This goes on the top, and this is the clean bottom edge that will be seen. Back side of this, so when it touches the wall, it'll be flush. Okay, so as you're going down, I'm just using pin nails. So you see the niche. Touches the end. If that was straight, it would go out and it wouldn't touch. So it's nice and tight on the edge. So now I just need to go side to side and make sure it's centered. And I have the doors in place because when you mount these cabinets, sometimes you get a little racking. And so I had to mount the doors just to make sure everything stayed square. So I just line that up, line this up, and then make my mark right on the baseboard. So now I take this out. And cut. That thing's really close. Crazy. Hopefully, I don't know what to do, but this place is gonna. We're right in line with that smoke too. Look at that; it's coming right at us. Man, okay, I better hurry up. They might kill the power. This is nasty. This wind is blowing 30, 40 miles an hour. Sometimes it gets up to 50. Yeah. I can hear the airplanes. That's how close it is. I need to do this one. And that's going to be the start of the header. So, okay, so we can see it here. Easy. So I'm going to do an outside miter and then an outside. now we'll go fit this. This is how this goes, right? That's how that. Okay. Let's put the header on. Let's see. It's lined up with the pilasters. So in the distance it goes over, it's the same distance as this.